Almost everywhere you look, the left is in ruins. What people have seen recently is liberalism run amok. If Democrats do not learn some hard lessons from the poor governance in many blue cities and states, they will be left defending cultural elites, woke ideology, and bloated, inefficient government.
Oh my God. This CNN host just slaughtered the Democrat Party on live TV. He makes the case for why we need MAGA damn near better than Trump did. So make sure you watch till the end of the video because I have never seen anything like this. So let's watch Fareed talk about why across the world people are just fed up and sick and tired with left-wing politics. And then he circles back and explains how these same left woke policies absolutely ruined America. Watch.
And now, here's my take. Countries with more than half of the world's population went to the polls last year, and the basic message they sent to their governments was one of dissatisfaction and anger with the status quo. Their frustration, however, seemed to be particularly focused on the party that has traditionally been identified with big government, the left. Almost everywhere you look, the left is in ruins. Of the 27 countries of the European Union, only a handful have left-of-center parties leading government coalitions. The primary left-of-center party in the European Parliament now has just 136 seats in a 720-seat chamber. Even in countries that have been able to stem the rise of right-wing populism, like Poland, it is the center-right that is thriving, not the left. And in the US, of course, the breadth of Donald Trump's victory, nearly 90% of counties in America moved right, suggests that it is very much part of this trend. The crisis of democratic government, then, is actually a crisis of progressive government. People seem to feel that they have been taxed, regulated, bossed around, and intimidated by left-of-center politicians for decades, but the results are bad and have been getting worse.
Why this is so important is because these European countries are arguably more left than we are here in America. I mean, there's a whole crisis going on right now in Great Britain with people literally getting jailed for tweets and social media posts. Woke policies in the name of diversity and inclusion, like open borders, are ravishing Europe. I mean, we have it bad here, but they're also getting a huge wave of illegal immigrants who are causing chaos in their country. People are sick and tired of getting taxed out the wazoo for these big bloated governments full of bureaucrats who seemingly care about everybody else instead of their citizens. Now, this is where he starts destroying American Democrats. He compares New York, an extremely liberal state, with Florida, a pretty conservative state, and the differences are drastic. Watch.
New York, where I live, and Florida, where I visit often, provide an interesting contrast. They have similar-sized populations, New York with about 20 million people, Florida with about 23 million. But New York State's budget is more than double that of Florida's, $239 billion versus roughly $116 billion. In addition, New York City, which is a little more than 3 times the size of Miami-Dade County, has a budget of more than $100 billion, which is nearly 10 times that of Miami-Dade. New York City's spending grew from 2012 to 2019 by over 40%, 4 times the rate of inflation. Does any New Yorker feel that he or she got 40% better services during that time? What do New Yorkers get for these vast sums of money generated by the highest tax rates in the country? If you're well off in New York City, you pay nearly as much in income taxes as in London, Paris, or Berlin, without free higher education or health care, I might add. New York's poverty rate is higher than Florida's. New York has a lower rate of home ownership and a much higher rate of homelessness. Despite spending more than twice as much on education per student, New York has education outcomes, graduation rates, 8th grade test scores that are roughly the same as Florida's.
This is exactly why the American people need Doge to come in and clean up the government and make it run efficiently. There is so much overspending and inefficient spending anytime Democrat politicians are in charge of something. It seems Democrat politicians have the philosophy of, we're the smartest people, we're the most capable, we're the most effective, so give us all of your hard-earned money and we'll solve these problems for you, and end up creating bigger crises for the citizens. There's a reason there has been so much outflow migration from places like California, Illinois, and New York. Everywhere Democrat politicians are in charge, people get taxed more. Housing and the cost of living is way more. Homelessness, crime is much higher. And illegal immigration is far worse. I mean, just take California, for instance. Governor Gavin Newsom is increasing taxes to raise $100 million for the state to do what with, you guess? To protect and defend illegal immigrants against Trump. The citizens are being forced to pay money to protect illegal immigrants. That's the kind of woke, anti-American policy that you get from Democrats. And I completely understand why people are fed up across the world. Now, here he is making the case for Doge, making the government more efficient. Better than I could, better than Trump can, and better than Elon can. He goes crazy. Watch.
It's easy to comfort oneself by thinking that these sky-high tax rates and growing government revenues are providing some crucial ingredients of progressive government. But they are often simply the toll of waste and mismanagement. The first phase of the Second Avenue subway's construction at $2.5 billion per mile was 8 to 12 times more expensive compared to a sampling of similar projects in places like Italy, Sweden, Paris, and Berlin, not exactly low-cost locales. A large chunk of state and city tax revenues goes to fund pensions. In Illinois, more than 8% of the budget goes towards pensions. In New York City, nearly 22% of the budget funds pensions and benefits for government workers. Now, promising government workers generous pensions has been an easy way to buy the support of a crucial voting bloc while ensuring that the costs don't show up in the budgets until years later. America's big cities are incubators of growth, vitality, and energy. That's why the spotlight is placed on them and their governance. And what people have seen recently is liberalism run amok. For years, theft was rampant in California's cities because of a weak shoplifting law. New York's homeless, some of whom are drug addicts or mentally ill, are left to frighten and harass the public on the streets and in the subways. The man charged this week with attempted murder after pushing another man in front of the subway had a string of prior arrests. The ultimate test, of course, is how people are voting with their feet. For years now, New York has been losing people to states like Florida. This same story can be told with minor variations about California and Texas. Basically, big red states are growing at the expense of big blue states, which will translate politically into more Republican representation in Congress and more electoral votes. There's now an interesting effort by people like Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy to combine cultural conservatism and economic nationalism with the radical reform of government. That could be an appealing ideology for many voters who are frustrated by a government where nothing seems to work that well. On the other side, if Democrats do not learn some hard lessons from the poor governance in many blue cities and states, they will be left defending cultural elites, woke ideology, and bloated, inefficient government. And that might be a formula for permanent minority status.
Woo! I mean, that man absolutely cooked. Remember, that is a CNN host. Smash that like button if you enjoyed what he just said. What he said at the end was absolutely true, but first let me touch on what he was getting at when it comes to blue state inefficiency. California has spent over $200 billion and wasted 20 years trying to install high-speed rail. And anybody have a guess for how many miles of track have been laid so far? 0. That is people's hard-earned money going to lawyers and consultants and environmental regulators. So much regulation makes it impossible for things to actually get completed in California. To me, that qualifies as theft and money laundering, because you know the same people who are getting all of this money from California for these failed projects are the same ones who are voting and likely donating to Democrat politicians to keep this little scheme alive. But to what he said at the end, yes, if Democrats do not get this under control and they don't take a hard look in the mirror and see that they are the problem, everything they stand for is outright repulsive to Americans at this point, they will never govern again. It's not just a given that in 4 years or in 8 years, people are going to support the Democrats again. All these people who are Democrats who went to Donald Trump are going to have kids who are going to be more of this middle-leaning, slightly right-leaning conservative values, and it's just going to perpetuate a culture in America where far-left policies are just outright rejected by the culture. The craziest stat that I heard was 90% of counties in America moved to the right this election. So while the media is trying to say, oh, it wasn't a landslide because, he only won by a few million votes and they don't really have that big of a majority in the House and the Senate, they fail to look at the fine details. Kamala didn't flip a single county, and Trump moved 90% of counties towards the right. 40% of Californians voted for Trump. Illinois, 45% of residents there voted for Trump. These are deep blue havens. If just one of those states happens to become a Republican state or even a swing state, the Democrats will forever lose elections, which is probably a good thing. I don't know why I'm trying to give them advice on what they should do to make things better, because we know that they're incapable of doing anything right. But while the Democrats always like to say that no one respects Trump on the world stage because we know that they prefer Democrats because the Democrats are weak and let the entire world take advantage of us, listen to the president of Ukraine talk about how other European leaders perceive Donald Trump. It's a stark difference from what Democrats say. Watch.
It won't be long because Europe will be looking at us and will be looking at Trump. And by the way, I now see that when I talk about something with Donald Trump, whether we meet in person or we just have a call, all the European leaders always ask, how was it? This shows the influence of Donald Trump. And this has never happened before. With an American president, I tell you from my experience, this also gives you confidence, that he can stop this war.
I retweeted this video on X earlier. Go follow me there if you haven't already. But I said a strong and competent US president is a great thing for the world. There is no country in the world that can match our capabilities, our military strength, our economic strength. So when we use it to better the values of freedom and peace throughout the world, there are tangible positive benefits. I mean, the Democrats like to say how Trump is best friends with Putin, so you would think that Zelensky would not be thrilled about Trump bringing an end to their war if it was so favorable for Putin and so unfavorable for Ukraine, but clearly that isn't the case. Clearly Trump is going to bring a peace negotiation that both sides are probably going to be unhappy with, which is how any negotiation should end. But the European leaders know that Trump is a serious person. They know that a real leader is back in charge of America, and they respect that. They may not like him the same way that they like Biden because they can't take advantage of us, but they certainly respect his leadership and his strength. Now, the last thing I want to talk about in this video is Greenland. So we obviously know Trump put out a comment that he wants to acquire Greenland for national security reasons, and everybody was rejecting it. Everybody was saying, oh no, this is, such a bad idea, it'll never happen. But guess what happened? Greenland is now pushing for independence from Denmark. And that may not be a huge deal on the surface to most people, but when you dig down a couple of layers, this is what it means. They don't want Denmark standing in the way of Trump making the people of Greenland a really good deal that they want to take. Greenland doesn't even match the 2% contribution to NATO, so how in the world are they going to defend Greenland from some sort of Russian or Chinese incursion, because we know that they're active in the Arctic? America can bring investment, infrastructure, prosperity, lower taxes to the citizens of Greenland, and they are open for it. That's why they're pushing for independence from Denmark, so then they can make the negotiations directly with America, because it seems like something that they probably want. Let's listen to them talk about this on Fox News. Watch.
I'm not sure it's necessarily about U.S. sovereignty over Greenland, but I think U.S. influence in the Arctic is extremely important. This is strategy. This is major high-level geopolitical strategy. You look at what our enemies are up to. You look at the Chinese, you look at the Russians together, that alliance or axis of the Chinese and the Russians, they are really aggressive in the Arctic. And the free world has to wake up and pay a lot of attention to that. And I think that's what Trump is getting at here, saying, hey, we would like to have more influence on this landmass.
So damn, it seems like the Democrats were wrong again. And with 14 days to go until the inauguration, Trump is just stacking win after win after win while not even being president yet. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Was that not an absolutely insane take by the CNN host? If you enjoyed the video, please smash that like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Turn on those notification bells so you never miss a video. And I will see you guys in the next one.